This is a Central Issues special report. I'm Susan Arbetter, welcoming you to WCNY's live anchored coverage of Governor David Paterson's 2010 State of the State address. The state is facing a staggering $9 billion budget gap, and that's 3 times larger than the budget gap that the legislature failed to completely close back in November. Finally, we enter 2010 with a deteriorating relationship between the governor and the legislature. The governor has low poll numbers, and public anger at the state Senate and Assembly have frayed the already delicate lines of communication between these two branches of government, which is a fancy way of saying these guys do not like each other. Let's listen.
This is a winter of reckoning, and I come before you today not just to talk of the state of the state, but also of the state of our self-governance, a fragile instrument of popular will that has become the will to be popular, where it is easier to deny reality and to demand that which we cannot afford than to accept that years of living on the margins of our means have had to end. Look at history. Cultures of addiction to spending, power, and approval have ruined empires, and now they threaten the empire state. The public wants bolder and more decisive initiatives in order to win back their trust. The inevitable goal of this legislation is to bring fairness and openness to government, which has very little of either. The moneyed interests, many of them here today as guests, have got to understand that their days of influence in this Capitol are numbered. They have routinely demanded special treatment without any regard for others. Well, no one person or group is above any others or more deserving of any more hardship and pain. The reality is that there is no moral high ground on trampling on others to get there, and there is nothing lower than engaging in the currency of influence to the detriment of other New Yorkers that don't have the same representation.
Joining me today to help us more easily understand the significance of the governor's agenda, our SUNY Cortland professor of political science, Robert Spitzer. Hello, thanks for being here.
My pleasure, Susan.
And Deb Warner, who's the government affairs director for the Greater Syracuse Chamber of Commerce. Thanks so much for being here.
Glad to be here, Susan. Thanks.
There was very specific reference to upstate New York and upstate's particular economic problems that we have faced, and how economic hard times hit upstate harder than they do downstate, and he was acknowledging that. And he laid out his 3-point plan where he talked about fiscal reform, abuse of power, or dealing with the abuses of power, i.e. ethics reform and his Reform Albany Act, and restoration of the state economy. And
he went into this speech very determined. Just if you look, the consistency of sort of the boldness and pointedness of his choice of words. At one point, he put his hands on his hips. I think that he was there to show his determination, his conviction to what he was saying. I think this was something that is very authentic for him.
Almost like we're seeing a new side to David Paterson. I mean, this is a gentleman who's very personable. He does like to make jokes. At leaders' meetings, he would always have this. Before, a couple years ago, he would have a body language that was very submissive. He would go like this at the leaders' meeting. Now, it's like his body language is catching up with his policies.
We have seen what happens when one party controls every lever of state government. Democrat leaders went behind closed doors last year and refused to listen to our ideas. The result was more wasteful spending, higher taxes, and no accountability.
And in these times of struggle, I remember the enduring faith of a child who grew up in a world of darkness, who chooses to believe in something bigger than himself or herself. And in spite of the adversity and the doubts of others, they can find strength and humility and perseverance. And so can all of us. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you for listening. God bless all of you, and God bless the people of New York.
We've been listening to Governor Patterson's 2010 State of the State address and the Republican response provided by Senate Minority Leader Dean Skelos. Again, thank you to my two guests today, Robert Spitzer of SUNY Cortland and Deb Warner of the Greater Syracuse Chamber of Commerce. I really appreciated your wisdom and insight. Thank you. I'm Susan Arbetter. Thanks for joining us.